Hello. I have a few thoughts about suicide and especially my personal experience with suicidal thoughts that I would like to share. So I think a lot of different people, and that includes intellectually gifted people, have at some point or another in their life tendency to have suicidal thoughts just because it's difficult to be different. And I'm no exception to this. So I'm intellectually gifted. I also fall into the category of hypersensitive people as defined by Elaine Aron. I am a man with a feminine brain, so called. You can see my other video about that. So I have quite a few reasons to be different, to feel different, and quite a few reasons to have some complications in life. So years ago, I did have the thoughts of suicide a lot in my head, and I was considering it during quite some time. So I had a kind of latent depression that I built up starting from late childhood and early adolescence, and that got gradually worse and worse until I was 20 or 25 or something like that. I won't go into the exact details of how and why. Everybody has their reasons to feel bad or to feel pain or sadness, despair, and stuff like that. So the exact reasons are not the most interesting part. The most interesting part of all this is how I dealt with it, or how it transformed itself into something in a certain sense positive. And that's what I would like to share. So what happened was I was playing with this idea on and off. I even thought about a way of committing suicide that wouldn't cause problems or trouble to my family and people I knew. One of the reasons I didn't want to commit suicide was that I didn't want to cause any trouble to people in my surroundings, and I didn't want to leave them with this heavy burden of having a suicide in the family or among friends, etc. So I even devised a way of doing that, which is maybe a bit daft, but that's not the point. The point is how and why I thought about it. So my idea, in short, was to travel very far, like to India or I don't know where I would be able to commit suicide, but I would first make a lot of postcards, which I would write and sign, and then I would pay someone or a service or something like that to send these postcards like every few months back to my family and my friends, saying, oh, everything is very nice here and the weather is warm and see you later. So actually, during years I would be able to, after my death, I would be able to make sure that my friends and family would happily think that I was happily in India and everything would be fine. Of course I didn't do that. I didn't kill myself either, because what happened was, and I remember this very specific instant, that I was sitting in my chair in my room. I was a student in Ghent, and I was looking out of the window, sipping my tea, and I was like thinking, like I had thought before, like it's of no use, there's no place for me here. I do everything wrong, it's all going bad, there's no sense in all of this. I could just kill myself. And then the thought came to me of why, before I would kill myself, why wouldn't I do everything I didn't dare before? Maybe out of shame or out of being afraid of possible consequences or stuff like that. And I remember that it's a stupid example, and I don't even really feel like doing that, and I didn't really feel like doing that at that time, but it came to mind like, I could go out and run naked in the streets and then kill myself. You know, just for like, let's have some fun before, because anyway, after that I'm gone, so I won't have any consequences of it anyway. And actually that thought, not the thought of running naked in the streets, but the thought of being able to do whatever I needed to do or wanted to do, and afterwards be able to, you know, press the button and disappear, actually liberated me phenomenally. Because I could do whatever I needed to do and get out. But I could also continue to do what I wanted to do and afterwards get out. I didn't need to first do what I needed to do and then immediately commit suicide. There's no need for that. So actually I started, from then on, I started to doing things that maybe I would have been inhibited in doing, maybe because of what other people would have thought, maybe because of what my parents would have thought or felt about it, maybe because of what my own convictions about these things were. But I felt an urge to do things or a necessity to do them, and I could do them because I could always like wipe the slate completely clean afterwards and end it. And actually the more I got into this kind of mental frame, you can do what you need to do, the less I needed this idea of suicide and this possible exit. Because the more life became having sense. So this is how actually the idea of suicide transformed itself into a driving force that drove me away from actual suicide. So just also for the record, if you have problems with suicidal thoughts, or if you think about suicide a lot or stuff like that, please look for professional advice. They will be able to give a lot better than me, but I still just wanted to share my experience. And also as a PS, in the frame of the masculine-feminine brain theory, which you can find more about in my other video, I think it's interesting to analyze suicide in that frame. And you can see it like this. On the one hand, you have the more masculine brain, which is more or less characterized by rigidity, to put it in very short, and rather lower empathy and stuff like that. On the other hand, you have the feminine brain, which is characterized by flexibility, high empathy, etc. So if we're thinking about reasons, the big reasons for suicide, I think one could analyze that on the one side, the main drive for suicidal thoughts would be, I can't succeed in making the world adapt itself to me. Because the masculine brain is rather rigid, so it's not easy for the masculine brain to change, so it will want to change the world to adapt to itself. And the world doesn't adapt itself enough for some people, so they'll get into suicidal thoughts. On the other hand, the feminine brain, which is more my kind of brain, is characterized by flexibility and wanting to adapt oneself and wanting to avoid the suffering of others. So the suicidal thoughts here would rather have as a root, I don't succeed in adapting myself sufficiently to others, so they're happy with my presence. This was actually more the root of my problem. I am a nuisance and I can't succeed in transforming myself into not being a nuisance. I also talked in my book about how I finally dealt with it, but that's maybe for another video. You can find a link to my book on Amazon below. Thank you for watching. Thank you also to all the people who like and subscribe and share my stuff. You are fabulous, and please leave your comments, questions, etc. below, and see you in the next video. Bye.